read my namesake, Catherine Maher, was head of NPR, and, she said, "We're completely unbiased. Give me a break, lady." I mean, they're crazy far left.
If you look on the right side, Jamie, where it says the truth is a distraction from getting things done, that is such a fucking Orwellian thing to say. Click on that just so you can hear her say this, because it's so bananas that someone would say this out loud and not think it's...
One of the most significant differences, critical for moving from polarization to productivity, is that the Wikipedians who write these articles aren't actually focused on finding the truth.
Oh, no.
They're working for something that's a little bit more attainable, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years there, I actually believe that they're onto something. That for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become
What?
a bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done.
What?
Oh, my God.
Bill Maher has taken the battle directly to NPR for their one-sided coverage. The exchange was as funny as it was heated. NPR is supposed to serve as an impartial source, sharing news without bias or preference. But the reality shows something else. Rather than staying fair, NPR appears to have picked a side. And here's the twist. Even though they leaned toward Maher's stance, he didn't give them a pass. In true Maher style, he blasted the outlet for failing at the very mission they claimed to uphold. The takedown was nothing short of intense. So let's jump in.
The heads of NPR and PBS testified before Congress this week amid accusations of liberal bias. Should the government continue to send taxpayer dollars to public broadcasters? Well, a little background here. I mean, they've been after them the Republicans have wanted to get rid of PBS for as long as I can remember. This crowd will probably do it. I mean, I also read my namesake, Catherine Maher, was head of NPR, and, she said, "We're completely unbiased. Give me a break, lady." I mean, they're crazy far left.
So, flat out acknowledging that NPR and PBS lean heavily to the far left. Their executives will insist over and over that's not the case, but let's be real. The evidence is right there. Just look at April 2024 when one of NPR's own senior editors, Yuri Berliner, called it out, saying the network had fully given in to the progressive mindset. That's not a conservative attack. That's an insider's admission. And it doesn't stop there. NPR's own CEO, Catherine Maher, later confessed they ignored the Hunter Biden laptop story when it actually mattered. Selective mistake, you decide. And if that weren't enough, Congress questioned NPR and PBS in 2025, pointing to their non-stop fixation on race, gender, and identity politics. Neutral, balanced, really. These outlets have chosen a side, and Bill Maher tore into them for it. And folks, it was blazing.
So, I mean, I think we're past the age, really, where the government, first of all, why do we need to subsidize? Why can't we have outlets like this? And we're so polarized. These outlets became popular at a time when Republicans and Democrats didn't hate each other and weren't at each other's throats and didn't think each other was an existential threat. In that world, you can't have places like this, I think, anymore. They have to be.
I have to admit, I sort of agree with Maher on this one. When you really think about it, PBS and NPR are largely funded by the government, which makes them open to political pressure. Any administration, left or right, could quietly push on them, shaping the story to match their own goals. That kind of setup creates a risky loophole where what's meant to be fair reporting can slide into state-approved messaging. And let's be real, once a network depends on government backing, it's only a matter of time before influence turns into propaganda. Anyway, let's keep rolling the clip.
I think Yuri Berliner, ex-NPR employer, his piece this week, where he said that they should just let go of the funding. I love NPR. I listen to NPR almost every day, have since 1975, when my parents used to play it in our Chevrolet Caprice when I was like 9 years old. I love it for its point of view, but since 2020, it has no longer been general. I remember in 2021, my then 9-year-old asked me, and of course she has no sense of context, I don't pump her full of things like this. She said from the back seat, in a very different car, she said, "Daddy, why is it that NPR is always playing the same thing?" And I said, "What do you mean the same thing?" And I swear she said, now she doesn't have a vocabulary, but she said, "It's always about how somebody can't do something." And that what she was getting at was that. I wouldn't have said that about the NPR that I knew back in the day, and I wouldn't have said it 10 years ago, but that is what it is now.
Yeah, I'm siding with Maher on this. In the run-up to last year's election, NPR locked onto the Trump campaign like a spotlight. Constant coverage, dissecting every slip of the tongue and every move. Even NPR's own public editor admitted they got a flood of complaints about how often Trump was featured or how his remarks were replayed, corrected, and argued over more frequently than many thought was fair. But here's the twist. This wave of coverage didn't always look like journalism chasing truth. It came across more like an effort to magnify every mistake, stir up confusion, and ramp up the pressure, especially on voters who were still undecided. If the aim was to spark doubt toward Trump among those on the fence, well, it sure looked that way.
That the government was funding NPR is crazy. Like this, you can't have a completely biased, one-sided media organization that's funded by the government and taxpayers. That's crazy. And they went over all the amount of people that were on NPR that were Democrats, and it's 100%.
Yeah.
It's like out of 87 people, it's 100%.
Look at the New York Times.
Yeah.
I mean, so that none of that should be a surprise to anybody who's.
But the New York Times is at least a privately funded company.
Right.
I mean, it's like NPR relied on tax money, and there's this giant outrage that the government's going to.
That's completely wild. The Democrats really figured out how to work the system to tilt the field their way because having 80% of NPR's newsroom made up of Democrats is nothing short of stunning. Think about that for a moment. This isn't some private outlet openly flying a political flag. This is a news organization partly funded by the government and by taxpayers like you and me. With that kind of public support, the bare minimum expectation should be fairness. A 50-50 split, half Democrats and half Republicans, would at least ensure a mix of viewpoints and perspectives. Instead, what we have is a newsroom echo chamber where one side dominates the story and the other is nearly shut out. That doesn't just warp reporting, it eats away at public trust in journalism itself. And Maher calling it out only revealed how deep this imbalance goes.
At the end of the day, the reality is the internet exists. Yeah. And you don't need to publicly fund something that's clearly biased when the internet exists.
Right.
You can get whatever you want. If you want to just absorb and consume only left-wing media, there's so much available. Right. You can go find it. But our tax dollars should not be going to that.
No. And to be fair, if anybody wants to know what the hell's going on in the news, they can just listen to the President's Daily Brief podcast, frankly.
Oh, your podcast.
I'm good, right? Yeah, that's some. Yeah, boy, I just stuck that in there.
I can't find this.
Joe Rogan is absolutely right about this. In today's world, the internet is everywhere, available to anyone with a phone, a tablet, or even the cheapest laptop. You don't have to depend on government-funded outlets or old-school media giants when real, unfiltered news is only a few clicks away. The power of the internet is that it breaks the monopoly. You're no longer trapped with whatever storyline a small group of elite journalists decides to promote. Instead, you can check dozens of reliable, independent sources, compare their coverage, and reach your own conclusions. Sure, you have to cut through noise and false information, but that's where judgment comes in. If you put in the effort, you can uncover solid reporting, serious investigations, and viewpoints that mainstream outlets choose to overlook. In a media world that often feels controlled, the internet is the one place where genuine balance and choice still remain.
Show me a story that concerns you. That's fantastic.
As far as the accusations that we're biased, I would stand up and say, please show me a story that concerns you, because we want to know and we want to bring that conversation back to our newsroom.
And then they have all these.
And then all this fat phobia and its racist past and present. Some white people may choose thumbs up because it feels neutral, but some academics argue that opting out, what does that mean? Thumbs up signals lax awareness about white privilege, akin to society associating whiteness with being raceless. What?
God.
What does that mean?
Or how about how racism became a marketing tool for country music?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Interestingly, NPR has always tried to present itself as neutral, insisting over and over that they are not biased. But when you look even a little closer, the facts reveal a very different picture. A quick browse through their site shows a constant flow of stories and reports that lean strongly toward promoting Democratic talking points. Meanwhile, stories that could benefit Republicans are either hidden, minimized, or framed with doubt. This trend is far too steady to be coincidence. So when Trump says NPR and PBS should lose funding, he isn't making it up out of nowhere. Why should taxpayers cover the cost of a network that doesn't fairly reflect the range of political views across the country? If public money is going to be used, then the public deserves fairness, not favoritism. And right now, NPR has done little to show it has earned that trust or that funding.
On the right side, Jamie, where it says the truth is a distraction from getting things done. That is such a fucking Orwellian thing to say. Click on that just so you can hear her say this, because it's so bananas that someone would say this out loud and not think it's...
One of the most significant differences, critical for moving from... that for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become...
What?
A bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done.
What?
Oh my God.
So there you have it. At its core, NPR has never really been about digging for the plain truth. It's been about carefully shaping agreement. Instead of giving listeners the straight facts and letting them decide, the network often presents stories in ways that steer audiences toward a chosen outcome. And who gains the most from that? The Democrats. They've perfected the skill of using NPR as a loudspeaker to spread progressive messaging and push their political goals. From cultural debates to policy fights, NPR has consistently boosted narratives that fit neatly with the left's agenda. While opposing views are either brushed aside or quietly left out, it's less journalism and more subtle conditioning packaged in the credibility of a taxpayer-funded outlet. That's why critics argue NPR has become less of a watchdog for the public and more of a tool for the woke. And Bill Maher noticed it too.
It's time for the media to admit that they blew the whole thing way out of proportion, because as always with media these days, they don't cover what's most important, just what's most fun to watch. There are 15.2 million college students in the U.S., and 2,300 have been arrested. That's 1/67th of 1%, and half of the ones in New York weren't even students. But we were given the false impression that these protesters are the voice of their generation, having found a cause for which they were willing to go to the tents and to the barricades. Oh, please, these kids are more violent when their team wins a championship.
Yep, Maher nailed it. The media today isn't focused on doing what's right or delivering solid facts. It's fixated on what's flashy, fun, and guaranteed to drive clicks. Instead of putting truth first, they chase drama, turning every small mistake into breaking news and every political argument into a spectacle. And let's be honest, it's all about profit and fame. Outrage sells, scandal trends, and exaggeration keeps the ratings up. Fact-checking is almost an afterthought, buried under the scramble to be the first headline on your screen. The outcome is a news cycle built on hype, where the goal isn't to inform the public but to entertain them at any cost. Maher's point is clear. When the media behaves like a reality show instead of a truth teller, society pays the price. Because without accountability and accuracy, we're left with noise instead of news. But when
these kids chant, the whole world is watching, they're right. But only because you assholes with the cameras won't show anything else. Isn't there a bear in a swimming pool somewhere you should be covering?
The media today feeds on outrage and drama, and nothing fuels that machine more than conflict. They love to focus on moments of unrest, especially when those moments can be spun as defiance against the government in power. A protest with a few hundred people suddenly gets blown up into massive turmoil. A street scuffle is portrayed as violence breaking out nationwide. By inflating the size and intensity, they build the illusion of chaos, planting the belief that the government is either weak or losing control. It's not always about showing reality. It's about shaping a storyline that hooks attention and keeps audiences glued to the screen. Anger and fear sell far better than calm and order. So the cameras zoom in on the shouting, the clashes, the most dramatic angles possible. The outcome is a warped picture where ordinary dissent is exaggerated into a national crisis, all to boost ratings. At the end of the day, Bill Maher's fiery call-out of NPR reveals a tough truth. The media isn't about fairness or facts anymore. It's about agenda, drama, and influence. Whether it's NPR leaning left or networks chasing clicks, trust is collapsing fast. And if nothing changes, propaganda could fully replace journalism in America. That wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more content like this.